Ever heard of a life sentence for stealing a pair of socks? Or getting 50 years to life for being a getaway driver? It sounds like something out of a movie, but in California, this was a harsh reality for thousands of people. Today, we're diving deep into the dark side of California's justice system, specifically its controversial three strikes law, and the unbelievable sentences it produced. Picture this, it's 1994. Public fear of crime is at an all-time high, fueled by several high-profile, tragic cases. In response, California voters overwhelmingly passed Proposition 184, better known as the Three Strikes and You're Out law. The idea seemed simple and tough on crime. If you have two prior serious or violent felony convictions, your first two strikes, then your third felony conviction, no matter how minor, would automatically land you a sentence of 25 years to life in prison. On the surface, it sounded like a way to keep dangerous, repeat offenders off the streets for good. And for a while, politicians championed it as a massive success, pointing to a nationwide drop in crime rates as proof. But the reality on the ground was far more complicated and, frankly, heartbreaking. The law was written so broadly that the third strike could be for something as minor as petty theft, simple drug possession, or even stealing a slice of pizza. Let's talk about some real-life examples. There's the story of Leandro Andrade, who was sentenced to 50 years to life for stealing 9 children's videotapes from 2 different Kmart stores. His prior strikes were for non-violent burglaries. His case went all the way to the Supreme Court, which ultimately upheld the sentence, arguing it wasn't grossly disproportionate. Imagine that, a lifetime behind bars for shoplifting videotapes. Then there's Curtis Wilkerson, who received a sentence of 25 to life for stealing a pair of socks worth $2.50. His prior strikes were from robberies he committed years earlier. He spent over 2 decades in prison for that single pair of socks before his sentence was finally reconsidered. These aren't just isolated incidents. The law cast a massive net, and thousands of people were swept into it for non-violent, often minor, third strikes. The result? California's prison population exploded. By the early 2000s, the state's prisons were dangerously overcrowded, operating at nearly 200% of their designed capacity. This led to a crisis in healthcare, sanitation, and safety for both inmates and prison staff. The financial cost was staggering, with taxpayers footing a bill of billions of dollars each year to house a growing number of inmates, many of whom were aging and posed little threat to public safety. The racial disparity was also impossible to ignore. Studies consistently showed that African American defendants were sentenced under the Three Strikes law at a rate significantly higher than their white counterparts, even when accounting for their criminal histories. It raised serious questions about fairness and equal justice under the law. Was this system truly about public safety, or was it perpetuating a cycle of mass incarceration that disproportionately affected communities of color? For years, critics and reform advocates called for change. They argued that the law was a blunt instrument, a one-size-fits-all solution that failed to distinguish between a career criminal and someone who made a series of poor choices, often driven by poverty or addiction. They pointed to the immense human cost: families torn apart, lives wasted behind bars, and the astronomical financial burden on the state. The tide began to turn in 2012 with the passage of Proposition 36. This reform measure amended the Three Strikes law, requiring the third strike to also be a serious or violent felony to trigger the 25 to life sentence. It wasn't a total repeal, but it was a crucial change. Crucially, it also allowed inmates who were sentenced for non-violent third strikes to petition the court for a new, shorter sentence. This opened the door for thousands of people like Curtis Wilkerson to regain their freedom. The process wasn't easy. Each case had to be reviewed, and prosecutors could still argue that an individual posed an unreasonable risk to public safety. But for many, it was a long-awaited chance at redemption. Stories emerged of men and women re-entering society after decades, trying to reconnect with families, find jobs, and rebuild their lives from scratch. Their experiences highlight both the resilience of the human spirit and the immense challenges of reintegration after long-term incarceration. So, what's the situation today? California's prison population has decreased significantly from its peak, partly thanks to the reform of three strikes and other measures. However, the legacy of the original law still lingers. Thousands of people remain in prison serving life sentences under the old rules. The debate continues about the right balance between punishment, public safety, and rehabilitation. The story of California's three strikes law serves as a powerful cautionary tale. It shows how well-intentioned policies born from public fear can have devastating and unforeseen consequences. It forces us to ask tough questions about the purpose of our justice system. Is it simply to punish, or is it to rehabilitate? Can we create a system that is both tough on serious crime and smart about how it handles lower-level offenses? And how do we ensure that justice is applied fairly and equitably to everyone, regardless of their background? These are complex issues with no easy answers, but they are incredibly important to consider. The unbelievable sentences handed down in California are a stark reminder of the human cost when policy goes wrong. It's a part of modern history we shouldn't forget. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this topic interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into complex issues. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next one.